Have you ever wondered if there's a place inside you that's never abandoned you? No matter how far you've drifted, not a temple, not a dream, but a living tree of compassion that has always waited, quietly, patiently, for you. In today's journey with Trandy wisdom, we return not to a distant land, but to the Bodhi tree within our own heart, where awakening begins not with perfection, but with tenderness. Stay with us and listen deeply. You may just remember the part of you that was never lost. 1. Returning to the inner Bodhi tree, the beginning of coming home. There is a tree that stands, not in the center of the world, but in the quiet corners of your being. It does not cast a shadow on the ground. It casts a silence across the busy surface of your thoughts. The inner Bodhi tree is not a place in history, but a presence in this moment. You do not stumble upon it by chance. You uncover it through remembrance, and this remembrance begins not with knowing more, but with letting go of what you thought you needed to become. You have walked many paths, some paved with ambition, others with heartbreak. You have followed voices outside of you, trying to find where you belong. But perhaps belonging does not lie out there. Perhaps it waits here, in the space that opens when you stop. Close your eyes and breathe. The first step toward awakening self-compassion is not a dramatic realization. It is a turning inward. It is sitting beneath the tree that has always been growing in the hidden soil of your heart. This tree has been with you since before memory, long before your name was spoken for the first time. Its roots began to form, woven from the tears of your ancestors, from your first breath, from every moment you longed to be understood. You may not have noticed it because you were taught to look elsewhere. You were told to seek the extraordinary, the brilliant, the loud. But the inner Bodhi tree speaks in hushed tones. It waits in stillness, and it offers shelter, not escape. To come home to this tree is to be willing to be seen, not by others, but by yourself. It is the radical act of saying, I no longer need to outrun my pain. I no longer need to silence my fear. I will sit here, not to fix myself, but to feel. The leaves above do not demand that you explain your sorrow. The bark does not ask you to justify your restlessness. The roots only ask you to stay, and be present. You may have mistaken this stillness for weakness. You may have believed that stopping was the same as giving up. But under the inner Bodhi tree, stillness is strength. It is the kind of strength that bends but does not break. It is the kind of courage that touches suffering without needing to transform it into something else. This tree does not cure you. It companions you. It holds space for the unfolding of what has always been true. There is no ceremony required to sit beneath it, no posture you must perfect. You simply arrive with your breath and your weariness. You arrive with your doubts, your insecurities, your tangled thoughts, and the tree does not flinch. It does not turn you away. It offers its silence as a mirror, so you can finally see yourself without distortion. In that mirror, you do not find perfection. You find presence, and presence is enough. The journey back to the inner Bodhi tree is not a single act of return. It is 1,000 quiet decisions to be here, to breathe through discomfort, to notice when your mind wanders, and to call it back, not with harshness, but with care. This is the path of self-compassion. It is not paved with declarations. It is walked with tenderness, one breath at a time. Some days, you will forget the way. That is part of the journey. Forgetting is not failure. It is the invitation to return again. Every time you remember to return, the tree becomes more visible. Its form grows clearer, its presence more steady, until one day, you no longer feel like a visitor. You feel like a child who has come back to sit at the feet of something ancient and kind. What do you find under this tree? You find the parts of yourself you have cast out, the laughter you silenced to survive, the grief you buried to keep going, the questions you left unanswered, and you find that they are not enemies. They are seeds, each one waiting to be watered by your attention, warmed by your presence, invited into wholeness. Under the inner Bodhi tree, there is no performance. There is only unfolding. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to want to rest without having to earn it. In this space, you do not have to impress the world or pretend you are beyond pain. You are allowed to simply be. And that is the beginning of healing. The tree asks nothing of you but your truth. It welcomes the version of you that is often hidden, the one who cries in the shower, the one who doubts at midnight, the one who longs to be held but is afraid to ask. This is no weakness. This is the doorway. Vulnerability is not the opposite of awakening. It is its threshold. If you place your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat, know this: you are already under the tree. You do not need to visualize it, imagine it, or manifest it. You are it. You are the ground, the roots, the breath of wind in the leaves. The separation was never real. You were never exiled. You only forgot. To remember is to come home, not to a version of yourself you've polished and perfected, but to the self that has always longed to be met. Coming home is not an arrival at certainty. It is the courage to sit down with your uncertainty and say, "You are part of me too." It is the softening that happens when you no longer require yourself to be hard. It is the smile that blooms, not because everything is solved, but because everything is allowed. There is great peace in knowing that the Bodhi tree lives within you. You carry it through sorrow and joy. It shelters you in despair and in celebration. It is the constant amid all the changes. You can forget it, but it never forgets you. Its roots are patient. Its stillness is eternal. Its invitation is always open. Sit, listen, breathe. This is not the beginning of a new journey. This is the return to what you knew before you were taught to forget. This is the beginning of coming home, not to a place, not to a belief, but to yourself. And that is the most sacred journey of all. 2. Embracing pain with compassion. The practice of self-love. Pain does not ask to be banished. It does not knock on the door of your consciousness so that you can chase it away. It comes because it wants to be seen. It arrives with trembling hands and a trembling voice, asking only one thing: will you sit with me for a while? We have been taught to turn away from pain, to cover it with noise, with work, with laughter that does not reach the heart. We have been trained to smile through it, to pretend it is not there, to apologize for our sorrow as if it were a failure of character. But under the inner Bodhi tree, no part of you is rejected. Pain is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is a call. And the practice of self-love begins with answering that call with presence. You do not need to understand your pain before you are allowed to sit beside it. You do not need to explain where it came from or justify why it still lingers. Compassion does not wait for clarity. It begins with attention. Sit down, breathe, and let your pain know it is no longer alone. That is enough. Imagine your pain not as a wound, but as a child who has been waiting for you in the cold. They do not ask for solutions. They do not need you to be perfect. They just want to be held. When you embrace pain with compassion, you are not weak. You are remembering how to be human. It takes great courage to turn toward your suffering, but it is a quiet courage, like the opening of a flower, not flashy, not loud, just sincere. When you bring gentle attention to what hurts, you are saying, you belong. You are no longer fighting parts of yourself. You are learning to include them in the circle of love. We often think of love as something we give to others, but the first love must be rooted here, in the soil of your own being. To love yourself does not mean to flatter or indulge. It means to tend to your inner life with the same kindness you would offer to a friend. It means to listen without judgment, to comfort without fixing, to stay without fleeing. The practice of self-love is not romantic. It is not always soft. Sometimes it is raw, exposed, aching. It is choosing to sit with the pain of abandonment, of regret, of grief, without numbing, without denying. And in that sitting, something begins to soften. A tenderness rises, not to erase the pain, but to accompany it. You might feel resistance. You might hear the voice inside that says, "This is too much. I can't do this. I don't deserve kindness." That voice, too, needs compassion. It is the echo of past wounds. It is the voice of someone who needed love and did not receive it. Listen to it with the ears of a wise friend. You do not need to obey it. You only need to hear it and offer it space. Self-love is not a feeling you must chase. It is a practice. Some days, you will sit and feel only numbness. That is okay. Some days, you will feel sorrow that seems bottomless. That is okay. The act of turning toward yourself, again and again, is the practice. It is not about feeling better. It is about becoming more real. There is a gentleness in this practice that may feel unfamiliar. We are used to pushing, striving, correcting, but compassion asks nothing of you. It does not require progress. It welcomes you where you are. The moment you place your hand on your heart and say, "I see you," you are already healing. To embrace pain is not to let it consume you. It is to give it room to breathe. So much of our suffering deepens because it has been silenced. When you open space within you not to analyze but to allow, you create a sanctuary. In that sanctuary, pain may speak, it may cry, it may be silent, but it will no longer be as isolated. Let your breath be the doorway. Inhale and recognize there is pain here. Exhale and say gently, "I am here for you." These are not just words. They are acts of care. They are how you make contact with the life within you that has waited so long to be welcomed home. The Bodhi tree within you knows suffering. It was not planted in ease. Its roots grew strong through storms. Its trunk bent in sorrow and did not break. When you sit under it, you are sitting with the strength of generations. You are not the first to hurt. You will not be the last. But in this moment, you have the power to stop the cycle of rejection and begin the circle of compassion. You may notice, over time, that the pain changes, not because you fought it, but because you befriended it. Its edges soften, its grip loosens. It becomes not something you must get rid of, but something you can carry with grace. You walk differently, not because the road is easier, but because you are no longer walking against yourself. And slowly, your presence becomes a healing space for yourself and for others. You no longer run from tears because you have cried. You no longer judge the pain of others because you have sat with your own. This is the silent gift of self-love. It ripples outward. It transforms your presence into a refuge. When the Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree, he did not awaken out of separation. He awakened out of deep connection with suffering, with life, with the world. And so it is with you. Your awakening will not come when you feel perfect. It will come when you realize that even your pain is part of the whole. So sit, breathe, listen. There is nothing wrong with you. There is only pain that needs your love. There is only sorrow that longs to be met. And the one who meets it is the one who will bloom, not into someone new, but into someone whole. This is the practice of self-love. This is the embrace that liberates, not with force, not with speed, but with presence, patience, and a soft whisper. "I see you. I will not leave." 3. blossoming into awakening, the fruit of self-compassion. There are seasons in the heart that cannot be rushed. The soul, like the earth, knows when to open and when to lie dormant. And so it is with awakening. It does not answer to the clock of the world. It follows a rhythm much older, much gentler, a rhythm tuned to breath, to silence, to the soft unfolding of compassion. You may not notice when it begins. There is no banner, no trumpet, no lightning bolt from above. It may begin in a sigh, in the space between two thoughts, in the moment when, instead of scolding yourself for failing, you place a gentle hand over your heart and say, I see you. I know this is hard. This is not the awakening of saints and sages carved into stone. This is the awakening of real human beings, with all our doubts, our fears, our cracked voices and trembling hands. It is the awakening that takes place in laundry rooms, on crowded buses, beside hospital beds, and in the lonely quiet of the early morning. To awaken through self-compassion is to see that the sacred was never far away. It was hidden in the places we dismissed, waiting to be touched by presence. The fruit of this awakening is not transcendence, but intimacy. Intimacy with our pain, intimacy with joy, intimacy with the small, unnoticed moments that make up the texture of a life. You may find that your breath becomes your first teacher. It shows you how to stay when everything inside you wants to leave. It teaches you how to return when you've drifted far. Each inhale becomes a doorway back to the present. Each exhale, a letting go of the need to be anything other than what you are. The more you practice self-compassion, the less tightly you cling to ideals. The need to be impressive dissolves. The pressure to be healed disappears. What remains is the quiet awareness that life is precious because it is fleeting, and that your presence, however imperfect, is enough. Imagine sitting beneath a tree in spring. The branches above are still bare from winter, but buds are forming. You do not tug at them to open. You do not yell at the tree to blossom. You wait. You trust. You simply continue to sit, to breathe, to offer presence, and in time, the bloom arrives. So too with your heart. You may have been taught that value comes from being strong, from being productive, from being useful, but awakening reveals another truth. You are worthy because you exist. You are lovable because you are alive. Your heart does not need to earn rest. It needs permission to rest. This resting is not laziness. It is restoration. It is the deep pause that allows new growth. When you let yourself rest, not just your body, but your self-expectations, something inside begins to whisper again. You start to hear the voice that has been covered for years by striving. It says, I miss you. I'm still here. Will you come sit with me? The fruit of self-compassion ripens slowly. At first, it tastes unfamiliar. We are used to the sharpness of critique, the bitterness of not enoughness. But as we keep practicing, as we keep returning, something changes. We begin to crave tenderness. We begin to trust silence. We begin to find nourishment in stillness. Awakening is not a goal to be achieved. It is a softening, a loosening of all the ways we have held ourselves tight. It is the willingness to be seen as we are, not to be fixed, but to be known, not to be cleaned, but to be held. It may come to you in unexpected ways, in the way you hold your own gaze in the mirror without flinching, in the way you walk slower, no longer rushing toward some ideal version of your life, in the way you notice the sky and allow it to move you, in the way you let tears come without apology. Each of these is a blossom, and though the world may not notice your blooming, the earth does. The air around you shifts. The way you speak carries more spaciousness. The way you listen invites others to breathe. You become a field of presence, and those around you feel safer in your company, even if they cannot explain why. You begin to realize that every being is walking a path of blossoming. Some are just beginning to soften the soil. Others are pushing up through grief. Others are blooming in colors unseen. You do not judge their pace. You simply bow to their process, as you have learned to bow to your own. Sometimes, blossoming means breaking. There are petals that only open through rupture. There are insights that only arrive when something has fallen apart. When you no longer fight this truth, you become free. You stop asking life to be painless. You start asking for the courage to meet life fully. And you realize, awakening does not mean the absence of suffering. It means you now know how to suffer without hatred, without self-abandonment, without shame. You suffer with openness. You suffer with breath. You suffer with the presence of someone who has come home. This is the deep fruit of self-compassion, a peace that is not dependent on circumstances, a joy that arises not from getting what you want, but from accepting what is, a strength that whispers, no matter what happens, I will not leave myself again. As you walk with this fruit, ripening in your chest, you become a tree yourself, not one who towers above, but one who offers shade, one whose branches make space for birds, one whose roots hold the ground steady. Even when winds come, you become the Bodhi tree, not through achievement, but through embodiment. Your presence becomes a refuge, not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer afraid of questions, not because you are perfect, but because you have made peace with your imperfections, not because life has stopped being hard, but because you have stopped being hard on yourself. So let yourself bloom, in your own time, in your own way. Let the fruit of self-compassion ripen through daily kindness, through the brave decision to stay, through the soft courage of returning, again and again. And when you forget, as you will, you simply return. This too is part of blossoming. The turning back, the remembering, the forgiving. The Bodhi tree inside you will always wait, not with urgency, not with judgment, but with stillness, with presence, with the quiet strength of a love that has never left you. And one day, without ceremony, without grand revelation, you will notice you are no longer outside your life looking in. You are here, rooted, alive, blooming. This is the fruit of self-compassion. This is awakening. Epilogue. The tree that has always been waiting. You have walked quietly through the garden of your own being. You have returned to a tree not marked on any map, a tree that no one else can find for you. And in your return, something ancient has stirred. The inner Bodhi tree is not a metaphor. It is not a fantasy. It is not even a goal. It is a place of profound presence that lives within you. You touch it not with your hands, but with your breath. You rest beneath its branches, not through effort, but through surrender. And in that resting, something begins to shift, not the world, not your story, but the way you hold both. This tree has watched you from the beginning. It has seen the joy, the sorrow, the forgetting, the yearning. It never left, even when you wandered far, even when you spoke to yourself with harshness, even when you believed you had no light left. It waited, not out of obligation, but out of love, because that is what this tree is made of. The journey you have taken here has not required movement across continents. It has asked only one thing: to stop long enough to hear what has been calling your name from within, to stop long enough to notice that your suffering, too, has roots, and to stop long enough to see that those roots can grow into something beautiful. When held with compassion, you have returned, not to an ideal version of yourself, not to a finished product, but to the self that breathes, feels, aches, and hopes. The self that does not need to be more, but longs to be met. The self that is enough, simply because it exists. Under this tree, you have learned that self-compassion is not a luxury. It is not indulgence. It is not weakness. It is a revolutionary act of care. In a world that moves too fast, judges too quickly, and forgets too easily the sacredness of presence, you have seen that embracing pain is not about drowning in it. It is about sitting beside it and offering it tea. You have seen that love for the self does not separate you from others. It connects you to them more deeply. You have seen that awakening is not a mountaintop, but a breath, a pause, a gentle smile, even in the face of tears. And now, as this chapter draws to a close, there is nothing more you need to do. You do not need to arrive anywhere else. You do not need to become anything more. The tree within you is already blooming. The roots are already deep. The fruit of compassion is already ripening with each moment you choose to be here. All that remains is to live, to walk through your days with presence, to speak with kindness to yourself first, then to others, to return again and again when you forget, and to trust that in this returning, the Bodhi tree of the heart will always be there, offering shade, offering stillness, offering the quiet assurance that you are already home. Breathe, smile. You are the tree. You are the fruit. You are the one who has never left.